Hey everyone. I can't believe I'm actually posting here. This is my first time on Reddit, and I've always been one of those people who just lurks in the background. I've read so many stories, thinking to myself, wow, I totally get that. That sounds like something I could relate to. But right now, I feel like I'm drowning in my own life, and I'm hoping to get some advice from people who aren't emotionally involved in my situation. People who can tell me the truth, even if it's something I don't want to hear. So, here's my story. I'm a 25-year-old gay man, and I'm in a relationship with someone I'll call Jack, who's also 25. We've been together for almost a year now, and I honestly don't know where to start because this whole thing has been such a roller coaster. I think back to when we first met, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I've never really had much luck in the romance department, always sort of staying in my own lane, focusing on my career. But then Jack came into the picture, and everything changed. When we met, Jack had just gotten out of a long 4-year marriage. They were legally separated, but emotionally, I think he was still dealing with the fallout of that relationship. It had only been about 4 months since the separation when we crossed paths. So, I wasn't just starting a relationship with him. I was getting involved with someone who was still picking up the pieces of his past. And to complicate things even more, there was a rebound relationship right between his marriage and meeting me. I didn't expect that part. I didn't even know how to deal with that at first. Looking back, I should have seen the warning signs. But honestly, I didn't care at the time. I was so caught up in the excitement of finally having someone in my life. The person I thought could be my forever. I had no idea what kind of mess I was walking into. To make matters more difficult, Jack had just left the military. The adjustment to civilian life was harder than I think anyone could have prepared him for. It's like he was lost in a sea of emotions, responsibilities, and trying to figure out who he was outside of the military. He had all this baggage from his past, and I think I just wanted to be the person to help him sort it out. Little did I know, I was also carrying my own baggage. This was my first real relationship. I didn't have much experience with love or romance. Hell, I didn't even know what it was supposed to feel like. I spent most of my life avoiding any kind of emotional vulnerability. I buried myself in my career, worked long hours as a nurse, and convinced myself that focusing on my job would solve everything. But it didn't. It just made me realize how much I was missing out on. I never got to experience the things people take for granted: my first kiss, prom, holding hands with someone in public. It all felt like something so far out of reach. I never drank, never went to parties, never did anything normal like that. I've always been a hopeless romantic, though. I wanted that one true partner, the person who could be my best friend and my lover all at once. But the fear of not being worthy of that kind of love, it haunted me. And to be honest, I didn't know how to be the partner that someone like Jack needed. I had no idea how to let someone in when I had so much of myself hidden away. I also had these deep-rooted abandonment issues. The first guy I ever came out to was a mess. It was an online relationship that drained me emotionally and financially. I helped him pay for his schooling, believing it was part of building something real. But one day, he just ghosted me. No warning. No explanation. I've been carrying that with me for years. It made me realize that I tend to be too codependent, and it's something I'm working through in therapy. But that also means I've had a lot of baggage going into this relationship. And yet I thought I had finally found someone I could trust. Our relationship started off long distance, and I guess you could say it moved fast. We went from texting to talking every day to, within a month and a half, living together. He moved 3 hours away from everything he knew to be with me, and honestly, I couldn't believe it. He was willing to make that kind of commitment. Me? I had never even lived away from my parents, let alone shared a space with someone else. But suddenly, there I was, sharing my life with someone, sharing my space. And Jack was also my first real intimate experience. I had never thought I'd be able to let my guard down that much with anyone, but with him? I thought, for the first time in my life, That maybe I had found someone I could be completely vulnerable with. But as I've learned, that trusting side of me? Well, it was a little naive. It didn't take long for things to start changing. It was subtle at first, little signs that something was off. Jack became distant. He wasn't as affectionate. He wasn't as present. I started to feel this gnawing sense that something was wrong, but I tried to brush it off. I told myself it was just in my head. That maybe I was overthinking things. Then, one day, I saw something that shattered everything. He had left his Apple Watch on the counter, and I couldn't resist. I shouldn't have snooped, but I did. And there it was, messages. Not just one or two. Multiple conversations. Texts like, "Good morning, good night." Flirtatious comments, and it wasn't just with one person. It was with several people. My heart dropped into my stomach. I couldn't believe it. After everything we had been through, after everything I had trusted him with, he was betraying me. It was like someone had punched me in the gut. I confronted him immediately. I'm not good at conflict, I hate confrontation. But I couldn't just let it slide. I started crying in front of him, and all he could say was, "This is the last thing I need right now." He apologized over and over again, swearing it would never happen again. But the damage had already been done. He had been dealing with some erectile dysfunction, which had put a strain on our intimacy, and I tried to be understanding. I wanted to be supportive. He promised me everything would be okay. And for a little while, it seemed like it would be. But the months passed, and nothing really changed. Jack kept doing it. He would sext guys on Snapchat, sending explicit messages and sharing intimate details. The same pattern continued. At some point, I realized it wasn't about me. It wasn't about what I could give him. He just needed validation from others. And no matter how much I loved him, no matter how much I tried to support him, I wasn't enough to make him feel secure. I confronted him again. This time, he tried to gaslight me, telling me I was overreacting, that I was being too sensitive. But after a while, he admitted it. And once again, he apologized, saying he felt like I wasn't attracted to him anymore, that maybe it was something I was doing, or not doing, that made him look for others. He talked about how his exes had cheated on him, how he always felt like he wasn't good enough. There was always an excuse. But the truth was, he kept adding random guys on social media. Every time I found out, my anxiety would spike. I couldn't help it. I obsessed over it. I started checking his followers, his Snap scores. I knew it wasn't healthy, but I couldn't stop myself. I was terrified. I felt like I was walking on eggshells all the time, waiting for the next betrayal to happen. Even though he stopped sexting, the trust had been shattered. Every time he added someone new, my anxiety flared up again. And every time he told me he was sorry, or it wouldn't happen again, I didn't know if I could believe him anymore. It's hard to trust someone when the foundation of your relationship feels like it's cracked beyond repair. On top of everything else, there were financial issues. Jack is impulsive with money, lying about where it's going, hiding things from me. I'm starting to realize that there's so much about our relationship that's messy, and I don't know how much longer I can keep handling it. I still love Jack. I do. But I feel like I'm drowning in this relationship. I've invested so much into it, and I'm terrified of walking away. What if no one else will ever love me the way he does? What if no one will accept me for who I am, quirks, insecurities, inexperience and all? I feel like I'm losing myself, and maybe that's my fault. Maybe I've been too naive. Maybe I've trusted him too much. But how do you walk away from someone you still love? Aren't relationships supposed to be about weathering the storm together? About sticking it out and coming out stronger? But how do you do that when you've already weathered the worst of it? I'm exhausted. So incredibly exhausted. I keep waiting for the next time he messes up, and even though he's made some changes, I just don't know if they're real. How do I know he's not just going to do it all over again? My anxiety keeps telling me that he will. But then, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm walking away from the person I'm supposed to be with? I don't know what to do anymore. I don't know if I can keep doing this. I feel like I'm stuck in this loop, going back and forth in my head. I just need someone, anyone, to tell me whether I'm being too much or if I should just let it all go and move on. But how do you even begin to let go of someone who has so much of your heart?